Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Engineer.tf Map Review Series 2. I am your host, Painseer. Joining me on camera, as always, is Mothership. And with us today is Mr. Head Admin himself, Exa. Today we're going to be going over CP Steel, so buckle up. It's going to be a tough one. Um, so I think, first things first, I think we should talk about here is A. Exa, why don't we talk about defending on A? Because the the break the breakdown for this map is going to be a bit different than our other ones. So we're going to start talking about defense here first before we move on to offense.
Yeah, so at least for A point, it's generally just more like a point that you give away to offense, since
Mm-hmm.
really the meta is your team on defense will hold B. So oftentimes you'll normally just have your flank sort of like soft hold B, or not soft hold B. You would soft hold A point, and this is just to buy some time. And obviously, once they cap A, you want to focus more your resources on B. So that's generally why you're not going to have your engineer really ever hold on A unless you're going for like a weird strat, which I wouldn't recommend, obviously, since most of your defense time will be on the B point. So that's normally where you want to be holding.
So on B, which let's face it, this is really the first map of the point of the map, the first point of the map. I can speak, I swear. Um, where typically are you setting up on this point? Because I think there's what we say two main ways, and then you could set up.
Yeah, so normally like the default spot would be like right here. So you can watch main, and also it also watches a bit of upper and the drop down area here. So this is typically where you see most NGs put their gun, and then normally we'll put your dispenser in this area here for your combo. And then something I like doing a lot is going up to the upper area and then putting a teleport exit in this window area here. So this is normally for your heavy to take and be able to like rotate to upper really quickly if it gets pushed out. And normally for your teleport entrance, you can normally put it like around here. So like if your heavy drops down, you can just take it and then quite easily get back up to upper and hold that area.
Mhm. So when you're trying to position your gun here, are you typically more worried about main, or when this drop down opens, are you also trying to primarily focus your attention that way?
Yeah, so really this gun is supposed to watch main and really deny anyone obviously funneling through that main area. It can also watch a bit of drop down, however, if they're at the very far back end of drop down, you're gonna have to wrangle your gun in order to kill them. Because like if it's not wrangled, then I don't think it can actually shoot you properly. So that's something to be careful of if like the sniper decides to like go through drop down and try to get angle into your medic. That's normally something that you're gonna have to like call out and make sure that your teammates deal with pretty much immediately. Otherwise, that's gonna be not great for your team. So yeah, normally I would focus more on like making sure that your gun is in a position to like wrangle anyone pushing across main during an Uber fight, since you want to make sure that your gun doesn't die um, during that fight normally.
And is there ever any time where you would build back here by the full ammo? Well, most people would consider like the passive sentry.
Yeah, so this is more of like a backup spot if your entire team basically loses ground. Like if your team like loses this entire area here and you're still contesting B, but you're not fully holding it, then yeah, this is generally like the best spot I would say to really put your gun here. Just because it really just provides an area for you to wrangle anyone pushing across the main area, and then also you can wrangle from upper as well. And then once your team is able to like reclaim the ground that you lost, you can just grab your gun and then put it back in the normal fort spot. But yeah, that's more like a you would only really put it here if your team like is just playing passively.
Mhm. Another thing that I wanted to briefly mention because again, most of this map is going to be um, adhered with the comment it depends. Um, as Steel's quite the complicated map. Let's say the other team is planning on doing like an AE push or something, and you have set up on B, as most teams would. Is there something you typically do with your gun or play typically while the rest of your team deals with the E point?
Right. So normally when the blue team pushes A to E, I like to just leave my gun in this forward area here, just so you can watch the B transition. And I will normally just let my combo and flank deal with the E pressure. Oftentimes, like I think the issue is if you decide to pull out your gun early and rotate to help with the E pressure, and let's say you put it like in this wishbone area here, they're the blue team is just gonna funnel through B and then just retake that spot, all that ground that you just gave up. So it's kind of why I prefer to have my gun on like B, watching this main area here, even if they're pushing A to E, because you generally want to have at least like a couple people watching B just to help and spot anyone pushing from B, because you don't want to get pinched that way. That being said, if your team is obviously losing that E fight, then that would be a good time to like rotate, because obviously if they cap E, then you lose. But for the initial like A to E fight, I would just leave my gun on B just to like make sure that you're not giving up B so easily.
Yeah, essentially until E becomes the priority, either because of time or pressure on it.
Right.
And do you just typically put it in wishbone, like right before this kind of doorframe?
Yeah, so if you're defending the A to E, you normally want to put it like just anywhere in this corridor here just to like deny the cap, obviously. You just have to be careful of like any like demo spam, because it's a very like choky area, so your gun might get spammed out pretty easily. So you don't want to be taking the same damage as your gun. So you just be pretty careful about that.
So while we're here, we'll have time to come back to talk about anything else that we might skip because again, steel's quite complicated. Um, are you typically backing out of your holds through wishbone, or how are you typically rotating over to your next defense spot?
Yeah, so normally when your team loses B, I will just rotate through this spawn area here and then get into our spawn. And then once the team caps B, I will just back spawn to the E spawn. I normally don't ever go through the wishbone because it's really risky to rotate, because you might get caught out pretty early, and obviously when you die in steel you get a long respawn time. So oftentimes I just prefer, when we lose B and we know that we're giving it up, I just will stay in spawn here and just back spawn, because it's much more safe alternative and it allows you to pretty easily just set up on E after that.
And speaking of E, I think that we should go start talking about it. Um, I don't think it's where am I going? I don't think it's any real indicating or real like shocking news or anything, but as an engineer, you're pretty much going to be sitting on E for the rest of the game after B is lost, correct.
Yeah, that's normally the default spot, is the engineer will be playing on E. So this area up here, I mean, teams call it differently depending on like what team you're on, but I've heard it called like heaven or even jail. So it's normally when you're playing up here, you want to put like your gun right here, and then put your dispenser as well. Something that I've liked doing is I would put a teleporter entrance here. Let me get metal here.
An entrance?
Yeah, so normally I like putting a teleport entrance here and then a teleport exit down here. So what this does is, like, let's say you're holding up here and you know that you're gonna die. Like, let's say your gun and everything is about to go down. You can take this teleporter and get out pretty safely. And it also avoids the sniper sideline through that A window. So it's really just like a good option to get out pretty quickly, and then you can go back to your spawn. So that's something I've liked doing, at least to just get out, because once you're up here, you're normally like stuck because there's not really any like way to get out pretty safely. So that teleporter will give you that option of just fleeing, obviously.
Now,
What?
are you? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Are you typically keeping your gun here in this door frame, or
yeah,
would you, or like what advantages or disadvantages mostly would you have to like putting them out on the platform?
yeah. I prefer when I'm holding up here. I prefer putting it in this doorway, and I normally will have like either my heavy or soldier play up here with me, just to like deny the soldier or spy. The reason why I like putting my gun here is because if you put it in this door frame, and then once you upgrade your gun to level 3 and you hide behind it, like crouched, the sniper in A window actually cannot shoot you if you're hiding like in the door frame here. So you're pretty much like in a position to never like get sniped from that A window, and your gun can pretty much stay up pretty much forever. And obviously, if you also have your either your soldier or heavy playing up here with you, they can help deal with the spy, so your gun doesn't ever have to get sapped as well. The reason why I don't like putting my gun right here is it leaves you in a very like vulnerable position, I would say, to getting like sniped from an A window, because it forces you to like play in this corner here. And once you're in this corner, like the soldier can just bomb you from this bottom area here and just get like 2 easy rockets off you. So it's often why I don't really like playing here, because you're pretty much out in the open and you're sort of in an exposed area. So it's kind of why I do prefer when I'm holding here, I will just put it in the store frame, and then if I know that I obviously will lose the heaven area, I will just take the teleporter and then just get out. And so that's how often I'm able to like stay alive pretty much most of the time on E, is using the strat.
And staying alive is really important, especially on this map, because respawns on defense are so long. Do you have any helps, or what do you typically do when, let's say, the blue team takes this heaven spot away from you? Like, what are you typically doing to like try and help your team retake it?
Yeah, so typically when they take control of heaven slash powers or jail, like there's many callouts for that. You normally obviously you have to try to retake that area, otherwise you're pretty much in a position to lose the E point. So when I lose that spot, I normally will switch to minis. And this just allows me to be more versatile and have much more help to help with the retake. So when I switch to minis, I will normally float out through here. And you normally will need at least a couple of other teammates with you to really just help to retake the power spot. Because normally when they have control of power, they normally will put their soldier or heavy up here. So you need to have like your teammates to really take that fight with you and be able to put them to really push them out. So you might even need to have your combo rotate to help with that fight, and really just spam them and eventually just push them out, because if you don't have control of the upper area, you're just gonna get constantly spammed out. So it's really necessary that your team is on the same page of like who they want to send to really help deal with that fight, because once they have that spot, like at least for engineer, like there's not too much you can do on this map at that point because of how like choky this map is. Like I've seen some engineers play in lobby with like a gun as well, and this can be like pretty successful as well, but I've typically found like it's always much better to just have your engineer be playing in power defending E point, because that's just it forces their team to have to like split resources to like deal with pushing the point. So it's normally why I don't really ever play in lobby unless I like have no other options of doing so. So like maybe if your combo is like holding E, then I can potentially see like playing in lobby. So just playing like wherever, like the opposite side of wherever your combo's holding might be pretty decent. But normally like the default spot is like you want to make sure that if you lose control of heaven, you need to have like either your soldier or heavy, or maybe even your spy, help deal with retaking that ground. And so that's just something that you're gonna have to like make sure that you call and make sure that everyone's like pushing at the same time, just to really spam them out. Because it's I would say is probably the most important spot to deal with, because like I said, if you don't have it control of it, they're pretty much gonna get the E point pretty much easily.
Yeah, this is I think out of all of the kind of last sequential holds, it's the most powerful spot out of any map compared to what it looks over. And pretty even though we're rotating after here pretty much right after B, we're here for the rest of the game, whether or not you're the other rest of the 8 players or whatever are fighting on D or C. We're almost always going to be here on.
Yeah. So typically, like I also seen like, and this is when like like your team has like pretty much no like points to hold. Like let's say they have like 6 people on E point and they have control of power, or like the whole upper area here. Sometimes what I will do is I will also go through the left spawn door here, and then float out through wishbone. Just gonna jump over here. Yeah, and this is more of like a last resort thing when you know your team just has to like send anyone to like stop E. Is like I will just flood through wishbone here and then just try to like run in and stop the E cap. So that's an option as well. I've seen NGs do.
Yeah,
But
you can. It's your sentry is kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier, defending it from B. So over here you're coming from C, coming from
yeah,
spawn. So I think that's it for defense. I'm sure if there's anything else that we can want to mention, we'll come up to it as well. But I think I want to start talking about offense because I want to say offense is actually the more complicated half when it at least comes to NG.
yeah,
Um, so where do you, yeah, it's just easier if we're on blue. Where are we typically, I guess, starting um, when we're on offense?
yeah. We can go back to spawn real quickly.
Because out of all of the maps, it's actually one of the only maps you can actually build in your setup time. So you can actually get your level threes and stuff. Which you're often are playing level threes, correct?
Yeah. So normally on offense, the strat that I like doing the most really is using level threes. So actually, I don't know if I can switch my loadups here. It's gonna take me a bit to get back to spawn. So I should be back at spawn now. Yeah, so normally what you do is put your teleporter here, dispenser, and then build a level 3. And obviously, because you have such a long setup time and you can build on offense, you should be able to get everything up to level 3 pretty easily before the gates open. And the reason why level 3s are really good on offense is because it allows you to do split pressure after you cap A. So I can talk about that a bit more after. But really, normally, so once the gates open, you typically want to do is obviously go to A and then help your flank cap A. It's normally a throwaway point, like I mentioned earlier. So they're generally not going to be much pressure holding this point at all. They may have a spy holding around this area, like using a cloaking dagger. So you do have to be careful that the spy doesn't like just decloak on you and kill you when you have your gun out or something, or when you're holding your gun. So just be careful about that. And normally, what the spy will be doing is they're going to be calling your rotations and like how many people you have on A. So that's just something to be worried about. Once you do cap A, this is typically where you have a lot of options to choose from, and I think it's kind of what makes this map really fun on Engineer. Is like really you can be pretty creative with the strats that you run. So once A gets capped, they normally will have like their scout or soldier peeking from like their spawn door, and they're gonna be spamming you and calling out. So you just have to be careful about that. And it's really important that you have either your scout or soldier walk with you during the split pressure, because if you're walking through the sloppy area alone, you're just gonna die. So it's really important that you always have someone with you while you're carrying your level 3 gun. So once you're able to easily walk through here and make sure that their flank in the spawn area here isn't like shooting you, I would like to essentially just go over here and then put a gun through wishbone. And then obviously you're gonna also have to have your combo be on the same page as you, because this is how the split pressure will essentially happen, is that your combo will be pushing in through the main B area, and then your flank will funnel through and pinch them from behind. And then this gun here is really just to serve as like a backup. So like once the red team backs up, they're going to be running into your gun. So this is where your gun will be getting a lot of like cleanup kills. So that's one option of like the split pressure that I really like doing, because it's pretty effective at pinching the team. And normally what you can also do is you can put like a teleporter on C. Like I've seen engineers either put it like right here, or if you want to put it like in more like harder to spot area, you can put it like right here, or even like back here. And so what this allows you to do is it just, once you die on like in wishbone or whatever, you can just retake your teleporter and then instantly like be able to be in a position to flank again. And also your scout and soldier can take it as well and just be able to be in position to flank and apply pressure again, or even get on the E cap as well. So the teleporter is really important on split pressure.
Very much. Um, so to continue going on, and we'll have many different tendencies, especially on offense. Are you almost always coming over here with your gun to wishbone with it, or is there some times where you are wanting to leave it in lobby or even rotate it up to heaven?
Yeah, so this wishbone strat is just one option, as I mentioned. There's many different like variations of the split pressure I've seen. Like I've seen, I've, I guess I can walk over to the heaven area. But the other variation is that you would basically walk through here, and then instead of going through wishbone, you would walk up to heaven, and then put your gun like in this area here. And then you can put your teleporter in a position that isn't easily sniped from. Because you have to be careful of the sniper in the spawn door because he can open it up and have a pretty easy shot on you. So I have to make sure that that's not happening. And then really with this strat is it forces their team to have to like fight E because when you're in this position, you normally want your flank to be capping E while your gun is in this spot right here and wrangling. And it's pretty effective because it makes it really difficult for the red team to defend E. Like they're forced to essentially hold two different points. Like they have to hold B and E because your flank is obviously capping E. So it's a really good strat that if your team is on the same page can really be really effective. From what the times that I have done it. But generally, I prefer the wishbone strat and helping out with my team on B. There's also another strat that I like doing is I will go down through here and then up to here on C point and then put my gun right here. And then normally I put like my teleporter right here. And so what this spot is for is if you know your team is going to cap B, you can be already set up on C, and this allows you to already have like a presence on C. So like once B is capped, you already are capping C, and you have your teleporter up, so like anyone can take it and be in like immediate position to take over C already. So this is also something I've like doing as well. Other thing is like, let's say like your team messes up the B hold or the B push, you can move your gun up over to wishbone and then put it in like the normal spot I said earlier here, and then supply pressure and then help with the B push. So that's really an option that you can use as well because I would say it's safer as well because if you're going to C, it's a bit more hidden. Like you're not as easily spot, so you're able to set up on C pretty quickly. Whereas if you go to the wishbone straight away, they normally will send like their spy and soldier and scout to like shoot you. So that's why I think going to C for split pressure is generally safer, and then you can move up your gun after. So those are really just like a bunch of options that I think are pretty effective.
Yeah. And Steel is one of the maps where snowballing effects can really be beneficial. So if you have the capability of helping a lot out on C early, that's a really good thing you can do for your team. Are you typically one thing I want to actually mention real quick here? After B has been capped, there's going to essentially be kind of two sides of the map, either the B side or the D side. Um, in general, where are you typically wanting to play on? More importantly, your teleporter. I don't know about you, but through my past experience, I've had a lot of different teammates yell about me about where they want to go. So where are you typically wanting to play? I know we don't typically mention teleporters much.
Yeah, so normally after B gets capped, you want your teleporter exit to be really in the area to fight C and E. So like I've seen engineers put their teleporter like under here or even in this more like forward area here. Really the point is to make sure that you have a teleporter that is able to allow your teammates to fight to fight C and E pretty quickly. And so once I put my teleporter there, normally what I like doing is putting my gun like around here and just making sure that we have control of wishbone. And this is normally where it's going to be dependent on how your team wants to push, because oftentimes what you can do is you can either do split pressure again with making like having your flank push E and then try to apply pressure to force the other team to have to rotate to E, or you can have your team push through C and then force that engagement. So that's really an important thing that needs to be established with your main caller of your team and how your team wants to push, because however whatever the call is, that's really where you're going to be playing on this point. So
And one thing I want to briefly mention here while we're here, I normally do this with minis. You can actually make it to the point without the bridges, just by jumping off of your building.
yeah, yeah, you could also wrangle jump as well, but that can also be a bit risky if you don't know how to do it properly. But yeah, getting E pressure as engineer can be pretty valuable, especially if you don't have anyone else on your team that can cap or jump on there. Then yeah, that can help your team win.
So you're typically staying over kind of in like this wishbone area when you're splitting C and E.
Yeah, so normally I like playing here. So let's say like our team calls to push C. Then normally what I will do is I'll go over here, put down a gun here, and then just help with the fight. And normally when your team calls to push a single point, you want to have like your entire team like all pushing and just basically using the numbers advantage to force them to have to give up the point, because they have to, the defensive team, they have to choose which points they want to defend. So like if they gave up C, that's because they want to hold E, which is the more valuable point, because obviously if they lose E point, then they lose the game, obviously. So yeah, when your team calls to push C, you want to make sure that you're getting cap time and injury and making sure that you're able to support them like with your DM, obviously. And if your team decides to like instead apply pressure on E, like let's say you even have your combo play out here and like really apply a lot of pressure on E, you can have your gun like right here and then also like help out with the cap. I've seen also engineers, they when when your team is pushing E, I've seen engineers put it in the spot right here and then just wrangling like this entire area here. I've seen that be pretty effective as well. So it's really just supporting your team, like if you're wherever your team wants to like push, like you just need to make sure that you're supporting them.
To continue going around the world, I want to start talking about D and the splitting options you have there. I think the same mentality of C, where you want to apply pressure to D as well at the same time, also applies to D, and that applies to pretty much most of the map. But where you're typically playing, if your team is planning to take D.
Yeah, so normally after C gets capped, this is where it's important that you move your teleporter, because if you after you cap C and let's say you leave your teleporter on the wishbone area or like on B, it kind of makes it so anyone taking your teleporter will be split up. And that's obviously an issue, because once you cap C, you normally what you want to do is have your team push through this lobby area and then be able to fight D. So it's really important that after the cap C, you move your teleporter over to A. So that way, your combo that takes it will be in the position to fight the lobby area really quickly. Whereas, like, let's say you leave your teleporter on B, and let's say your combo takes it, they're going to be like in the wrong spot, and it's just going to mess up the rollout. and forces your team to be like all in different spots on the map, which isn't good if you're trying to group up. So it's important that, like I said, you remove your teleporter here after CS caps. And so normally what you want to do here is you want to help your team control lobby. So oftentimes what happens is that there will be like an Uber exchange here. So it's kind of difficult as engineer to do too much because it's a very choky area, like everything's like pretty flat. So there's not too much you can do in the fight besides just try to stay alive and then flood in after the Ubers have faded. But yeah, once you do control this lobby area here, what I like doing is helping our team fight these. So like you can go through here, put like a mini here, and then just help your team cap the. So it's just again supporting your team and making sure that they're able to like help win the gunfights. That's really like what you're able to like help them with pretty effectively.
Would you ever come over here to E, like we were talking about earlier? While your team is capping D?
Yeah, so I mean this is often pretty risky because normally what happens is that they're gonna have like their sniper or NG be playing up there. So like if you put your gun right here, it's just gonna go down immediately. So oftentimes I don't like peeking this area unless I know that either the sniper's not watching it or if I know that their gun is not like in a position to like really cause too much of an issue. If both of those things are a problem, then yeah, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to put your gun here and then also apply pressure on E. You can also like call your flank to take control of power or heaven if they're not playing in that position, and then it allows you to have a much bigger presence on E. So that can be really valuable, especially pushing this point.
Well, speaking of pushing this point, um, where are you typically playing if E is the only thing that's last to cap?
Yeah, so normally at this stage of the game, my teleporter will be on A. So when I take my teleporter, I'll be normally going through lobby here, and then I will put my gun either like right here, or I've been experimenting with putting it here as well. And basically, my job is really just to be a presence or like a body on the E point to just get cap time. And so that's really, I think, something that's really important for you to do as NG is like just make sure that you're helping with the cap time. And that's, at least on this point, like, I would say that's probably the best thing that you can do is just make sure that you're able to like, make sure that you also spy check for your sniper and then make sure that you're able to just cap the point and make sure that it's not like, an issue like in power spot that they're just spamming you out. So really just making sure that you're supporting a team and this point is really important.
Would you ever play like over here? Because I think I remember seeing quite a lot of older VODs of just having the gun kind of over here by Wishbone during this kind of last push. Or do you typically want to stay back over here by like the Red's old spawn?
Yeah, so I used to actually put my gun here, and I think it's still a really good spot actually, and it's something that I think it's still worth doing. The only risk I think would be if the flank goes through Wishbone here, they can just easily shoot the gun. So it's a very like spammable spot. So I think if you're putting your gun here, you have to make sure that you have someone spotting Wishbone and that is able to like make sure that anyone funneling through here just isn't able to like walk up and kill your guns really easily. But if that's managed, I think this gun spot is really, really good because it can deny like this entire area here, and then obviously like anyone coming from lower, and obviously a bit of wishbone as well. Like since you sort of have to peek the gun in order to damage it, so it's a spot that I really like doing, and I might do it more in my match as well.
Now, the last thing I want to talk about here, before we start wrapping things up, is an A to E hold, because that changes quite a lot of what you actually do on this last point. So let's face it, there's comes a time where everyone needs to do an A to E. Where are you typically playing on NG?
Yeah, so for A to E, it's a bit of a strat that I typically don't like doing because it's pretty much all or nothing in that aspect. But if your team does do it, normally what I will do is I'll put my teleporter like right here, and then go over through lobby here, and then I would put my gun either here. The other option is that you can put your gun over in power / heaven, and once that happens, you just need to have your flank apply pressure on the E point. Your combo will normally be locking out this wishbone area here, and then you normally have someone watching the spawn door here as well. So that's really like the strat that is normally done when you're pushing 80. And you just want to make sure your gun stays alive, obviously, and make sure that it's in a position to deny anyone like stopping your cappers, because it's meant to be like a last line of defense. But those are really like two spots that I would recommend. Just one either here or the one up there in heaven.
Yeah. I mean, there's no argument. This is meant to be kind of a last ditch attempt kind of thing, but so I think that's everything, at least as far as what I wanted to talk about. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention before we wrap things up?
I think at least on offense, I think I mentioned that like cap time is really important. Like you're typically going to be like one of the few players on your team that whose job is just to cap, because you're sort of like almost like in the like that role in payload where you're just capping the cart. Like it's similar to that where you're just capping the point. So making sure that you're helping in that department is really important, because that's really going to be your job on offense, and obviously helping to like deny pressure and rotate your teleporters to where your team wants to push is going to be like an important aspect as to how you win the map on this class, I would say.
Yeah. It was a very supporting map. Alright, well, thank you everyone for joining us throughout this map review series. This is the end of the maps being played, at least in this season of RGL. But keep an eye out for more videos in the future. We do plan on doing some other videos about other topics as well, so keep an eye posted. But for now, this will be the end of the map series. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.